Hey guys, welcome into today's video. Lincoln Riley spoke to the media yesterday and there was a lot of really interesting commentary about Duce Robinson, the nickel spot, and more. Now I rarely do whole videos on one media session, but in this case I do feel it's worth it. Now before we get into it guys, if you are enjoying the videos, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. All of your support means the world. Thanks for tuning in and let's get into it. Alright, so first up, Lincoln Riley spoke about where he sees Duce from a positional standpoint, as well as what kind of person Duce is.
You know, I certainly don't see him as a tight end. I mean, he's a guy you could, I think, conceivably do a lot of things with, which has been our excitement in recruiting him from, I mean, he was I've known Duce for almost 4 years. You know, it was a 3.5-year recruitment. And so got to know him very well. We've got to see his body really evolve and change a lot from day one. And he's really kind of leaned out his running. You know, he's just gotten faster and more agile as the years have gone on because he was always pretty big. So he's a unique skill set, man, that we're fired up to add it to a good group right now. And I mean, he's not going to be a every down on the ball tight end. I mean, I think we know that, no question. And so I would imagine he's a guy we'll, have the opportunity to move around and do some unique things with, because from a matchup standpoint, you can go out recruiting 4 or 5 years and not see that combination. It's a very unique combination of the skill set that he has, and then on top of it, just a tremendous person, a great family. He's the kid that, in the age of all these big announcements, all that, he drops a video and he's in the weight room with his dad and his family working out while it drops. Like, we weren't even able to talk to him. Like, I mean, like, that's just him though. Like, he's not flashy, great kid. His parents have done a great job with him, and he's obviously got some cool things coming up, and we're glad that, obviously thrilled that we get to be the ones that get a chance to do this next step with him.
All right, so the main thing that sticks out there is Lincoln saying he doesn't see him as a tight end, which I completely agree with. If you saw my video about Duce committing to USC, I said I fully expect him to have a 2019 Drake London role, where he is used in the slot as well as outside, so you can take deep shots to him when he's singled up. I mean, USC even announced Duce as a wideout, which I found to be pretty interesting. Duce has the potential to be the most dynamic weapon in the entire country. I don't think that's an over-exaggeration or me seeing things through cardinal and gold tinted glasses. The size, the athleticism, the skill, I mean, this guy is the entire package. Players like this rarely come along, and as a former offensive lineman myself, I mean zero offense by this, but do you really want to put that generational talent on the line and have him ram into 270-pound Big Ten defensive ends over and over? I know I sure as hell don't. Everybody blocks in the Lincoln Riley offense, even the quarterbacks, as we've seen with Caleb hauling ass downfield on those reverse plays. That's not what we're talking about here. Along the lines and in the trenches, that's a completely different world. One I don't think we should be repeatedly exposing Duce to. That's how I see things anyway. I'm glad to hear that Lincoln thinks in a similar light. Another thing that I found interesting that I didn't even pick up on at first was the mention of Duce's commitment video. I was so excited when the video got posted, I wasn't even paying attention to the video itself. I just wanted to hear him say USC. But that is such a good observation by Lincoln. Let's be honest, 95% of the time commitment videos are very self-indulgent and just cringy. This was a phenomenal example of how to do it right. It's all about the work with Duce, and from a locker room culture and accountability standpoint, he is going to fit in perfectly with what Lincoln Riley and the staff are trying to create. Lincoln then gave some insight on the staff's recruiting strategy at the tail end of the 2023 cycle.
Yeah, I think with the last 2 spots, in the high school class, in terms of the offensive skill, that was, that's what we wanted to attack. I mean, and we got a little bit bigger there. Obviously, Jacoby Lane brings some of that. Certainly Duce brings some of that. Walker Lyons, when he gets here, certainly brings some of that. We've been able to add some real speed. We got some juice in that room, and so you start to mix up the skill sets. I think that could be a fun combination, obviously, to work with, and we're pretty pumped about it. So, I think he fits a need, and it'd be fun to get him and Jacoby and these guys here and throw them in the mix with our guys, and feel like we'll have a chance to put out a pretty good product in terms of our skill position.
So some very interesting stuff there. Last year's receiving core, as fantastic as they were, big would not be a term used to describe them. So adding size this offseason was key, and they did just that. Lincoln was then asked about the back and forth nature of spring camp so far, as well as overall improvement to the roster.
I would say both, we're 8 practices in. I would say both sides have had one day where they were pretty dominant. The other 6 have been just back and forth. We just finished one today, and we got to scrimmage a little bit today. We kind of half practice, half scrimmage, and kind of went in phases. The defense started strong, and then offense was pretty good in the middle, and then the defense won the 2-minute drill at the end of practice. And so it's kind of been like that. It feels we're a little bit stronger. There's just a little bit more depth when you put the 2s, which we don't really even know who the 2s are, but when the second wave of players goes in, there's not as much of a drop off. There's just more good players on the field, and then some of the players that we brought back, more physically developed and a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. We feel a little sturdier, I guess, just to me as a whole, which is obviously was a goal for us, and we talked a lot about in the off season. So it's been extremely competitive. I mean, it's guys going at it. It was good to get out and get some live tackling and some live blocking, and really kind of let these guys go. And they certainly have met the challenge. So 8 practices in, we're happy. We've been a little limited at some of the positions, and that's why we changed practice the other day. You only get 15 of these. We've got our window of time, and so we'll end up doing a 4-day practice week. Obviously one of the next 2 weeks to make up for it, but we had just enough guys out at a couple of key positions that were kind of tough to practice with. You don't want to take away the practice for the other 90% of the team, but if one group can't do it, it can severely limit you. So gave our guys a chance to recover a little bit, and hopefully we'll get that practice on the back end with a few more bodies and they're ready to go.
Now, I know I've said it a lot, but when some of you throw all the blame over at Alex Grinch, you really need to look at who he had to run out there last year. It was brutal from a personnel point of view. Lincoln has pointed out multiple times that the players just weren't good enough last year, but you love to hear that it's back and forth. With how many new players there are on the defensive side of the ball, mixed with all the returning production on the offensive side, you'd think that the defense would just be getting smoked every single day. Glad to hear that they're holding their own. Alright, and lastly, Lincoln was also asked about the nickel spot in terms of lack of production last year, as well as candidates to take the spot over this year.
The spot last year was inconsistent, had some good moments, but we weren't productive enough at that spot. Like I feel about that spot kind of like we felt a little bit about inside linebacker. Like, had our moments, we had some really nice plays, but we weren't consistently the presence that we needed to be. And obviously it's a super key position in our defense. It gets a lot of action. Those guys got to do a lot. They got to blitz, they got to be in run fits, they got to cover. They're kind of right in the middle of the action. And so I've been extremely impressed with both Jalen and Latrell here this spring. They have both taken some big steps. Jalen has had a fantastic first half of spring, and really Latrell has too. Those are guys I'd put in the kind of the category right now with Sierra, and that they've just made some big improvements. They've improved their bodies. They both got to play a good amount last year. Both still relatively young guys that kind of figured out a little bit of kind of what it takes and what it's like, and they've had good off seasons, and really you just see those two guys playing more confidence right now. They know, they know where their help is. They understanding their fits better. They're more committed to their coverage technique, and it's shown up. So we need more production, but I like those two guys there. And then, when we get full strength in DB world, we'll certainly kind of start looking at one other body to work there. But those two right now are getting the primary share of the reps.
So that comment about the lack of production there, along with the inside linebacker comment, really makes it sound like Max Williams and Shane Lee are not in line to be starting. Just going off their last performance, Shane Lee had arguably the worst defensive performance I have ever seen a USC player have, and Max Williams had a real rough game overall. And if you remember, he got burned on that long pass play on the second to last drive of the game in the Tulane game, and he got ran over on that touchdown run on that same drive. Just a brutal game for him as well. Those spots have to have massive upgrades, and I'm really glad to hear that Jalen and Latrell have both improved. Latrell especially, he has a ton of upside. His tackling last year was very up and down, but when it was up, he was one of the better tacklers on the entire team. Talking about Jalen Smith, I thought he was one of the more consistent players on the entire Trojan defense last year, up until he got hurt in the Colorado game. But two very intriguing options there. Both of them are much better than what was there last year. So that was a great media session from Lincoln. We are inching closer and closer to that spring game. Thank God. There are so many fascinating storylines unfolding throughout spring camp, and I really feel like that spring game is going to help us paint the picture a bit more clearly. Alright guys, that is all I have for you today. If you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to help support the channel in an even bigger way, you can do so over on my Patreon for only $1 a month. Thank you all for your support. You're all awesome, and as always, take care and fight on.